All right, welcome back. We're talking Niners and Texans. Man, week 8 brings us a good one. The Niners against the Texans. The Texans on a short week. Niners going on the road. Texans coming off of a rough game against Seattle and a short week. And joining us, Enrique Vasquez, who's the Texans Spanish broadcast announcer, and he's with us to chop it up and preview the game. Enrique, how are you?
Doing well, Larry. Thanks for having me. And of course, like you said, the Texans coming off a bye week. We were expecting a lot more from their offense, and once again, they just simply fall on their face again on primetime. The offense just could never get going. They can't figure out blitz protection. They can't figure out how to protect C.J. Pressured on 31% of the plays. Defense, another great effort. 4 turnovers they generate, but still, they can't come up with a win against a quality opponent. And now here they are at 2-4.
They had the former 49er coach as the OC, just a year ago, and they decided he was not the right guy, and they changed the OC, and obviously maybe it had nothing to do with him, huh?
Well, that's the thing. When you look and see what all has changed, you have a new offensive coordinator. 4 of the 5 offensive linemen are new. You have a new crop of receivers other than Nico Collins, and still the results on the offensive side are the same. CJ is now struggling. He seems flustered. He seems not very comfortable, not only in the pocket, but when the offense doesn't work, he goes back to the silent, and it's almost like I'm sitting here moping type of an attitude. And I don't know that that's necessarily what you want to see from your quarterback, from your leader, to get the guys back up and the energy going in the right direction. But whatever they're doing is certainly not working. And CJ mentioned going through the bye week that they went back and looked at things and said, okay, well, this doesn't work. We want to throw this out. We want to change this and do more of this, build on that. I just didn't see it. I just didn't see any progress by this offense coming off the bye week. So really, as you look at the season coming ahead, and more importantly, the game on Sunday against the 49ers, man, it doesn't look good. It does not look good for CJ and for the offense, and especially now it hasn't happened yet. This isn't the locker room that's going to start pointing fingers. But man, when the defense gives you this type of an effort with 4 turnovers, and then the offense just can't do anything, it's so frustrating for this fan base.
Yeah, I mean, Stroud's a talented young quarterback, but if you drop back to pass 49 times in a game, you lose offensive balance. It's hard to play that way. I mean, 17 runs, 49 passes against Seattle last week, and Stroud not only was obviously their leading passer, but he was their leading rusher. He had 2 carries for 25 yards, and that 25 yards led them in rushing. What do you make of the Houston rushing attack with Nick Chubb, obviously off the devastating injury from a few years back? You got the rookie Woody Marks. How's that come along?
Well, it just isn't. That's the problem, that it's just not. And D'Amico Ryans made a point to say to the media last week, coming out of the bye week, that he did mention to Nick Haley that he wants them to stay committed to the run. But they lost their primary fullback coming into the season within 2 weeks of the season. Then they lose their number 2 tight end, who lined up a lot as a fullback, was very good in the blocking scheme as last year, and then he got hurt as well. So now you don't have that facet of the run game to be able to do some power run football. Obviously, the offensive line has done well at times to block for the run game. Nick Chubb went into the game against the Seahawks, averaging just over 4 yards a carry. So that's serviceable. That you can work with that. But then when it comes down to crunch time, they were shut down on 3rd and 1. They lost a yard. They were shut down on 4th and 1 at their own 41-yard line in the 3rd quarter. Again, I don't know that you want to be aggressive. I kind of like the aggressiveness that D'Amico has in that situation in the second half against the Seahawks. But then the play selection, you haven't run the football all night long. I don't know what led them to think that was going to work in that situation. So again, the struggles in the run game lead to all the struggles that the offense has had all season long, and then you stick to a lot of play action, which I don't know who that fools. The run game doesn't work. Why are we doing play action and then limiting what's C.J. Stroud sees once he turns around and squares up the defense again? I don't know. It just does not seem like there's a plan to make this run game work. Man, I really don't know where you go from here, because they've tried adding a lineman to an eligible tackle to come in and help out in the protection, help out in the run game, incorporating the tight ends, inserting him into the blocking schemes inside, and it just does not work.
Offensive football is so much about rhythm and so much about continuity, and they made so many changes. How much, the offensive line's got new players. You've got, new young running backs. They drafted both Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins pretty high in the draft, brought in Dalton Schultz. I mean, there's a lot of relatively new faces here. Do you think the newness and all the new faces is maybe lending itself to their struggles?
Well, you would think, but I mean, at this point of the season, by now, most other
Yeah.
offenses that have changed offensive coordinators, that have gone through other changes, seem to make things work. And that's the thing, that it's not even close. The offense scored 3 touchdowns in the first 3 games. Then they break out for 70 points against the Titans and the Ravens. Of course, we know how bad the Titans are and all the injuries that the Ravens had. So almost that sample size, you almost throw out the window. That doesn't matter. The reality of this offense against quality defenses is that they just are not consistent. They cannot protect CJ, and those may be reasons, valid reasons. Yeah, you had to make the adjustments, but really, other than Joe Mixon, who hasn't been here all season, everybody was there for all the offseason work. CJ is an experienced quarterback now in his 3rd season. You can't say, well, he's a young quarterback anymore. At some point, you got to say you got to step up and you got to make things happen and you have to get things done around here. And it just has not been the case. So although those other reasons are valid, you had all these changes, but by now 6 games in, you have to at least be able to establish some kind of rhythm at some point, and they just have not.
As we're talking, we don't really know the status of Nico Collins, but he did suffer a concussion in the fourth quarter of their loss Monday night at Seattle. Now very much in question for this 49er game. How do you think Collins came out of that game? And if Collins can't go, I mean, he was targeted 10 times. He is far and away their number one guy. If you take Collins out of the mix, what does that mean? Does that mean their number one guy becomes Dalton Schultz? I've seen that Jalen Noel from Iowa State, they took both Iowa State receivers.
Yeah.
And at first it looked like Higgins, the bigger guy, was maybe the better of the two. I've always felt like Noel, just watching them at Iowa State, was better. But now here we are, it's week 8, and Noel's coming off a game where he had 7 targets, 4 catches, 77 yards. It seems like Jalen Noel's coming on a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, and then don't forget the other Cyclone on the roster, Xavier Hutchinson, who's been around a little bit, and now he's made some plays. But yeah, everybody's going to have to step up, and Dalton Schultz has been a big part of the offensive game plan, and they're just going to have to pick it up. But then again, the offensive line doesn't give him any time when he drops back and he plants his foot on his last step, and all of a sudden he can't even take a read because the pressure's already, and pressure's there, and he's already has to bail out. Well, then that doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter that Nico's out there. Now, also, Nico's had a good season. He's dropped a couple of balls. That he had a fumble early in the season against the Buccaneers. He had a drop on what should have been a first down catch here in the second half against the Seahawks. So he's not making plays either. So it's not like it's only been that the pressures. It's just been everybody contributing something every day, every game for this offense for it not to work. But when you go back to the question, the passing game, who's going to step up? Well, let's see, because really at this point, only Dalton Schultz has been the one who's been consistent. But you're not going to live and have much success when your only successful or consistent weapon is your tight end. Unless you're Travis Kelce, of course.
Of course, yeah. Or actually, Taylor or the Colts, watching the Colts rookie tight end, he's doing really well as well. As far as the defense, I mean, this is D'Amico's specialty, right? He's a former linebacker, former Niner defensive coordinator, came over, now the head coach there. But he has Matt Burke as his defensive coordinator, and it's a talented defense. I mean, you're talking about 2 of the better edge guys going, right? Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. Azeez Al-Shaair has great respect for me. I think he's as good as almost any linebacker in the league. And then you got Derek Stingley in the secondary. You've got Jalen Petrie, who's a really good player, was at Baylor. Kamari Lassiter had a big game last week. How do you what's the strength of this of this 4-2 base defense that D'Amico puts out there.
I think the front line, and don't forget this weekend coming out of the IR, Danico Autry. He blocks a field goal. He gets some pressures. He almost came up with a safety there late in the game. Tommy Togiai, again, another guy who's been in and out of the rotation. He had a couple of nice plays behind the line of scrimmage. So it's not just the defensive ends, and of course, what Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson are capable of. Will with the sack fumble and the touchdown there in the first half to get the Texans back into the game against the Seahawks. So the front is what dominates. You were able to see, you mentioned Derek Stingley coming up with his 13th interception in the league. And I'm glad that when you mentioned Azeez Al-Shaair, your first comment wasn't, hey, that dirty hit or that penalty that they were throwing. I think he's getting a bad rap. You play
Great
linebacker
guy
in the NFL. He's a great guy on top of that. But to call him dirty, that's not who he is. And the hit, and for him to be penalized on that play, that was a tackle a yard into the field. Their momentum carried him to out of bounds. I don't know what a linebacker is supposed to do and how you're supposed to play linebacker at this level and take away that aggressiveness. That was just a clean hit, a clean tackle, and they threw the penalty on him. And that's unfortunate. And that's unfortunate that he's gotten that rap around the country that he's a dirty player, because he is far from that. He's a leader. He's a true guy, a true gentleman, and he plays hard. And that's what you have to do to play in the NFL.
The guy's awesome. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he's a made man with me. I mean, I've interviewed him many times. Heck, I talked to him and he almost came to tears about how he saved his family from a grease fire in the kitchen when in his youth. His family might not be here without Azeez. He's a tremendous person. The Niners found him unbelievably as an undrafted free agent. I don't know why this guy didn't get drafted. He made over 400 tackles in college, and he was just an awesome Niner, and it was a sad day when he left. They really should have kept him, but you can't pay everybody, and it's just as simple as that. And he followed D'Amico to Houston, and he's a great, great player. I mean, yeah, if anybody thinks that, you're defining Azeez Al-Shaair by that one hit, it has never been harder to play defense in the NFL than it is in 2025. You can't hit high, you can't hit low, the strike zone's tiny, the athletes are fast. You got a split second to do all these things. I mean, these are not Olympic gymnasts. You know what I mean? It's like these guys do not have that level of body control. And I think sometimes the people in the rules committee don't really think about, the size and the strength and the mass of these guys. It's hard to break down in space and do everything perfectly. But Azeez is absolutely not a dirty player. One guy I got to ask you about, because I was a huge fan of his in college, and now I'm hearing that the Texans may actually trade him. What is going on with Christian Harris? Christian Harris was a great player. It wasn't that long ago. He's not old. He was a third-round pick in 2022. He's 6 feet, 230, runs like the wind. I mean, why is this guy falling on the depth chart?
Yeah, it seems like he did. He's just disappeared. Injuries, first of all, he missed basically all of last season. Whenever he was back, he just never was able to get back on the field. He couldn't beat Henry To'oTo'o, who led the team in tackles last year, in absence of Azeez Al-Shaair with some of the troubles that he had with suspension, and then of course with the injuries that he had as well. But yeah, Christian Harris, I would imagine that by this point he would have been one of the established top linebackers in the NFL, and that just has not been the case. He's been a healthy scratch a couple of times this season as well. So it's unfortunate for him, but the group of linebackers that the Texans have is certainly doing a good job against the run game. EJ Speed has worked into the lineup primarily in third down situations. Henry To'oTo'o is not the best suited for covering anybody. So that's been the adjustment that D'Amico has made to the defense. But again, going back to your question, yeah, it's just everybody's scratching their heads. Why Christian Harris has not been able to step onto the field. The only action that he saw this weekend was really when he went and bumped Smith and Jigba on the bench in the little melee that they had there in the second half. But yeah, it's one of the things that you have questioned. But the reality is that the defense is doing their job. That's not the problem for this team. And if Christian Harris can't win his time back onto the field, well, then maybe that's a good sign that everybody is doing their job in the competition. It's true in what they say, and D'Amico says all the time, it doesn't matter where you came from or where you were drafted. It's about what you can do here and how productive you can be and how available you can be. And again, for Christian, unfortunately, missing all of last season has put him behind the 8 ball, and he just hasn't been able to make up ground.
All right, a little break from the content to tell you about our friends over at Sleeper. This 49er football season is presented on the Krug Show by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues, and, of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. Use promo code Larry, Larry, and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. We're talking to Enrique Vasquez, the Spanish play-by-play announcer for the Houston Texans. Niners and Texans, of course, go Sunday in Houston, and we can't wait for this one. Should be a good one. As far as their corners, I really like these corners. Stingley's a stud. He's always been really, really good. Obviously, he's the son of Darryl Stingley, who was paralyzed by Jack Tatum in that terrible hit in the 70s. But Derek Stingley is a tremendous player. I think he's one of the best young corners in football. And then Lassiter's no slouch either. I mean, Lassiter's a great athlete, good size, tremendous athleticism. Does Lassiter always play the right and Stingley always play the left, or do they sometimes travel Stingley with an opponent's best receiver? How does D'Amico do that?
Yeah, Matt Burke talked about that this week and what the plan was against Smith and Jigba this past week against the Seahawks. And more they've allowed Derek to travel with the best receiver. And it's just about matchups. Sometimes you can't do it in certain situations. Hurry up offense when you have to flip everybody. And you'd rather be in a sound coverage and a sound setup as opposed to traveling somebody and switching people. But for the most part, middle of the field, they like to travel Derek, and he's been up to the challenge. And it's one of the challenges that he takes on that he likes, and quite honestly, he wins a lot of those matchups as well. So again, picking up an interception this weekend, the 13th, as I mentioned, for him in his career. So yeah, and Kamari Lassiter, you mentioned him as a guy that not only is good in coverage, but he does not lack for effort in the run game and supporting against the run game. He does a good job to stick his helmet in and make plays there as well. So that's a good set of linebackers along with Jalen Petrie, who make up for a good secondary for the Texans. So again, that is being the strong side of the team, coupled with that front seven, certainly helps what you can do on the defensive back end. But yeah, Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter, a good group of cornerbacks that the Texans have.
How much do you think Houston missed Christian Kirk this week against Seattle, and do you expect him back for the Niner game?
Well, it's a hamstring, and it's the second time around the season. He missed the first time, the start of the season, and missed 4 games, and he was finally back. He was starting to work into the rotation, made some nice catches the last couple of weeks for this offense, but. Hamstrings he may feel fine, but it's a hard situation to prepare for, and unfortunately the team supposedly had a backup situation for him, Braxton Berrios, but again he finally played his first game with the Texans this past weekend against Seattle and really wasn't a factor in the pass game, and on top of that he took away the snaps that Jalen Noel was getting returning punts and kickoffs. I don't know that was the best situation or best decision. Jalen Noel had done a great job returning punts and kickoffs, and all of a sudden Braxton Berrios is available and he took over that job. So again, I don't know how this offense is going to find yards, find consistency. Christian Kirk was starting to get into the role, but now he suffers that hamstring injury again. So it's just a tough situation all around for this offense. If it's not injuries, if it's not Nico, if it's not the run game, if it's not the offense, if sometimes it's CJ not being consistent and making throws that you would expect from a quarterback of his quality, things just are not working in any kind of way. And it seems like everybody's contributing, whether it's the line or receivers or running backs. It's just a struggle right now to move the football for the Texans.
It's funny. If you say C.J. Stroud, you might have somebody go, man, he's the best young quarterback in the game. And then there's other people would say, he can't play. It's like, what? But if you look at this last 2 weeks, against Baltimore, he completed 85% of his passes. That's like unheard of. And then against Seattle, that number dropped from 85% to 47%. How can a guy complete 85%? What happened in that Baltimore game that was, that allowed him to complete such a high percentage compared to Seattle. Is Seattle that much better, or their defense that much better than the Ravens?
He had time. He had time in the pocket. The ball came out in rhythm. The ball came out on time. The decisions were good, and you see the results. Obviously, but that I would imagine that that's the case for just about every quarterback in the NFL. If you give them time, if you give them a clean pocket, they all have the capability of completing passes. But what separates the elite quarterbacks is what they do under pressure, and then CJ has just struggled in that sense. And some situations, the play calling maybe is questionable. Things don't build to anything. It seems like it's just a haphazard back-to-back plays that are thrown up there and see what happens. There just seems to be a disconnect in what CJ wants to do, what this offensive line is capable of doing, who's available in the passing game now with Nico being gone. It's a struggle, and that's the reality that the Texans have in this situation. 2-4 in the season, facing the 49ers coming in, playing some good ball offensively, even though you guys are now down Fred Warner. I didn't see any difference in what the 49ers defense is capable. I mean, that their aggressiveness to the ball, they rally to the ball, they play fast, they make plays. So again, it's going to be a struggle for this offense to get going unless things turn around miraculously for this offense. And unfortunately, for the Texans fans, I just don't see how that's going to happen in 1 week.
There were a lot of Niner fans that wanted the Niners in the second round of the draft to not go with a defensive lineman. They went with Alfred Collins, and they wanted him to go with an offensive lineman. And a lot of people wanted to see the Minnesota kid, Ariante Ursary, come to the 49ers. And instead, he went to the Texans in the second round, and they've plugged him in at left tackle. I'd heard some really good things early, but it's a tough position every single week. And how is Ursary Ariante doing at left tackle?
Well, he has his moments where he plays like a rookie, but he also has his moments where he can hold his own and have some plays and some drives where he does some good work. But again, it goes back to the plan on how the Texans wanted to solidify this offensive line, which going into the season was priority number one for the offense. You start out the season, he's going to be on the right side. You have Cam Robinson, who signed in. It was picked up by the Texans to play left tackle, but then he got hurt. So that's how Ariante ended up at left tackle. But week one, there's a situation where the guard is injured. So now all of a sudden, instead the plan was to have Ariante be the left tackle. But week one, what do you do to resolve the situation of an injured guard? Is you flip Ariante to right tackle, you move the tackle to guard, and you flip three positions because of one injury, and that really didn't seem to be a fair shot that Ariante got. That it's hard enough to play left tackle as a rookie, but now you're going to flip him week one because there's an injury. I don't know how that is the plan coming into the season, and I don't know that was the best situation for him. But he's overcome it. In a nutshell, he's played okay for a left tackle, but when the thing is that the defenses know that that's where they can try to take advantage of. They have tried, and Ariante, I think he's going to be okay down the road. But at some points you see that he is a rookie left tackle going through the struggles. But we'll see. He's shown some signs of having the skills, and especially in the run game. But we'll see. It's been a struggle at times, but you can see that the guy's got a future for sure.
One guy that I think is kind of playing pretty well for them is their right guard, Ed Ingram. He wasn't a starter entering camp. Cam Robinson, you mentioned, suffered an injury early on. That shook up the unit quite a bit. That gave Ingram a shot, and he's done a good job. I mean, I would say he's been kind of a bright spot for them.
Yeah, he has along with Titus on the right side as a right tackle, and so we'll see how consistent they are on the inside. The problem has also been the left guard, where they've rotated a couple of the guys. Drew Scruggs has come in, Lincoln Tomlinson, who they've rotated a couple of times, and I don't know maybe that is a sign of why this offensive line has struggled at times. Is that you would like to have the five, convince yourself that these are the right guys. But when you're still rotating guards and you're considering other changes, well, maybe that's a sign of what the problems really are. But yeah, Ed has been a consistent guy at the right guard along with Titus. But as a group, the group has certainly struggled and protected CJ, and there's just no getting around that. Again, that's the root of the problem. And not only the offensive line struggling, but just the whole, the whole function of how you protect CJ just doesn't seem to be on the same page a lot of times. A lot of free runners coming in through the line of scrimmage. That's maybe more a sign of lack of communication of who's picking up what. Late runners coming in, CJ not making the right reads and decisions to cut the routes off to get the ball out of his hands quickly. So it's just a struggle, whether it's getting beat one-on-one, who's picking up who, recognizing blitzes late, just the whole apparatus of how you protect the quarterback in this offense has just not been very good.
One of the things the Niners are looking for as they head towards the trade deadline are, maybe somebody to help them, ease the loss of Nick Bosa and maybe a little bit of Fred Warner. And I've seen rumors that the Texans may trade Christian Harris. They also have, some really good veteran defensive ends and Derek Barnett, Darrell Taylor. You mentioned Autry's back. All these guys have done it in the NFL. What do you think Casario's approach is going to be at the deadline? Are they buyers? Are they sellers? Or are they going to sit it out?
Well, I mean, you would think that if they would have won this past weekend and you see things turning around, maybe pick up against a win against the 49ers, you could see life in the offense. You would like to pick up maybe some help in the running back position. But when you see so many carries where the back is trying to avoid tacklers a yard or two behind the line of scrimmage, you have to fix the offensive line. That's still a problem. But how do you do that in the middle of the season? Nobody's going to give away tackles. Nobody is going to give away starting guards, and that's what you need. So really, even if you go and pick up a running back like a Breece Hall, who some teams have mentioned could be a possibility, the Jets obviously not going anywhere, and that being a possibility maybe for the Texans. But if you can't block, and the problem because still the run game with a lack of blocking up front or getting the job done up front. I really don't know where you go with this team, because defensively you have some pieces like you mentioned where maybe you have some depth that could be valuable to get quality starters, but really the main problem right now, as everybody sees it, is the offensive line, and maybe number two is running back, but I don't know that people are ready to give away starting guards or tackles.
Enrique, what happened to Dameon Pierce? I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Dameon Pierce was a good young running back and, doing the job and looking like the starter and looking like the long-term starter. And all of a sudden there's Woody Marks, there's Nick Chubb, there's other guys. He's on the bench. What has happened? What has happened to Dameon Pierce's star? It is
dim. I mean, that's another guy who just fell off the map, kind of like Christian Harris. He's been a healthy scratch, four of the 6 games this year. Again, against Seattle, he was inactive for the game, and just a guy I don't know if maybe it's more of a matter of his style does not fit the scheme, or obviously with the problems that the offensive line already has anyway. But he just hasn't made it happen, and it's just another guy where you go back. As you evaluate what Nick Caserio has been able to do in drafting players, obviously he's hit on a lot, but the misses have been, they've been pretty bad. Damon, he just disappeared coming off that rookie season. Like you said, we thought that he was going to be at least a solid number 2 behind Joe Mixon once they picked him up, but he just hasn't been able to be even on the active roster on game days.
How much rope does D'Amico have? Is he solid there? Is Caserio solid there with ownership? I mean, we're big D'Amico fans, and I think he's a really good coach. But they're 2-4 coming into this game, and it's the NFL. And, it's like you either win or there's changes. How solid is this regime?
I think D'Amico's solid. I think he's good, especially with how the defense has performed. Now it's going to be a matter of you would have thought that this time around they would have done a better job to pick Nick Caley. Not to say that he has no future as a coordinator in the NFL, but not having any experience when you already have a quarterback that's ready to go, and I think that you could win with C.J. Stroud. Having a coordinator who's a first-time play caller, I think now he's maybe being exposed a little bit of how to handle certain situations and manage a run game that needs improvement. And I mean, you can't expect that every team is going to have a Pro Bowler at every position on the offensive line, but you have to design schemes and set up plays and set up a rhythm with the offense with something. And we just haven't seen that with Nick Caley. So I think that's been the main problem. And D'Amico may get another chance, another crack at an offensive coordinator to get this going, because obviously you have a quarterback with who you can win. But the situation also is this, we're coming up on year 4 for CJ next season. So you have to make a decision on him. What are you going to do with him long term? And do you have a quarterback that you're going to have to pay over 60 million a season to try to win with? And as of now, man, that's going to be a tough sell. When you have an offense that just is not functioning in the right rhythm, and they just can't get things going. 3 touchdowns in 3 games to start the season is not a good look. And what we've seen against quality defenses this year for the Texans, it just doesn't look good. So going back to the question, I think D'Amico and Caserio are okay for at least this year, but they have to get it right. They completely have to get it right in how they're going to fix this offense, whether it's changing offensive coordinators again. But I don't know that you can keep rolling out the same effort and the same game plan, the same system, and think that things are going to change.
Enrique, awesome stuff. You did a great job profiling this. I won't, since you're calling the game, I will refrain from asking you to make a prediction. But give me your key for the Texans. If the Texans are getting this win in Week 8 over the 49ers, what's their key in this one?
It's going to have to be a street fight, a low-scoring street fight. I mean, this offense has not shown you that they're capable of scoring points against a good defense. Nico Collins more than likely will not be able to play. I don't remember any receiver or skill position player coming back from the concussion protocol in a week, so I can't imagine that he's going to be able to come back. And obviously, the Texans can't run the football either. So this is going to have to be a defensive battle, a low-scoring, under 20 for the Texans to win. And that's about all that you can hope for the defense to, again, keep them in the game, maybe come up with another defensive touchdown to help the Texans. But at this point, that's all the Texans can offer. Offensively, they just cannot move the ball against a good defense.
Awesome profile of this matchup. Really appreciate it. Enrique Vasquez, the Spanish broadcaster for the Houston Texans, stopping by. Enrique, thanks for your time. Have a great afternoon.
You too. We'll see you on Sunday.
Sounds good. More straight ahead.